So if you have a genuine interest in what has been going on with this case, the Epstein files and people suppressing it and all of that, I solve it in this video. I'm telling you right now, you watch this whole video to the end, you are going to know what has actually been going on. And I can say that pretty confidently because I put it all together for you in a way that no one else has, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. So watch till the end, and if you think I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, and we'll discuss. So if you're American and know anything about the Jeffrey Epstein story, and especially if you have kids and you consider yourself an ethical person who is empathetic towards people, the Jeffrey Epstein story was a very, very important one that you paid attention to, and in my case, extra. Now, there hadn't been a whole lot of new information for a long time, so I hadn't been covering it, but that changed immensely in the last day or two. And now this case just became a really big deal to me, bigger than it ever was before. Virginia Giuffre's book came out, okay? Just came out, right? And if you don't remember Virginia Giuffre, this is a picture that was literally like a week before she died. She's the most famous Jeffrey Epstein victim. And this is what she looked like, you know, when she was a child, okay? Here and here. And the stories that are in this book, they name names, okay? She names names in the book. And what we're talking about here, we're talking about world leaders named, okay? Big, big names, prime ministers as an example. And what she describes is not like, oh, I gave Bill Clinton, a massage and then I had Prince Andrew, stuff like that. No. We're talking worst case scenario. We're talking about violently taking it from her, where she's begging, okay? Like, I read this and I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't know how I allowed this case to kind of get outside of my purview, but now there is no scenario where anyone can be accepting of these people walking around that were a part of this, okay? They need to be exposed and they need to go to prison at the least. What we're going to talk about in this video, okay, is going to be about the actual, it's going to be about her book and the specific accusations that she made. And I'm going to talk about that one in particular just to demonstrate the depravity of this entire thing. And then I'm going to get into why my theory now of what is actually going on with the files and why they're really being suppressed, okay? Because there's a deal that's being done in the Middle East that is related to the current administration and all of this stuff that explains it. I never believed that that Trump was in the files because there's too much evidence that he's not. There's too many people in the DOJ saying, nope, we had nothing on him. There's the attorney for the victims in Florida that we're talking about, at least during some of the period of time when Trump and Epstein, I believe, were still friends. And the guy's like, there's nothing on him. He actually helped us. He actually helped us in the case. And you're like, okay, so, I mean, if he wasn't doing it then, why would he, he's obviously not, but I think I understand exactly what's going on. And I think, again, it has to do with an incredibly lucrative deal in the Middle East related to the Gaza thing. And so we're going to talk about that today as well. This video is going to be a mouthful. Now, I worked so hard on this video, researching and putting it together, that I am just going to say this, okay? If you're not subscribed to my channel, you're one of the 40% that are not subscribed. I would very much appreciate it if you lived up to the handshake. It's not free. There's a candy jar at the front of the video. And if you take the candy, you have to leave the quarter. The quarter is just either liking the video or subscribing or both. And I appreciate you guys because the kind of people that take the candy and don't subscribe, that's cold, dog. They're just, you don't want to be those guys. But I wanted to start here and just show you how people are viewing this case as Andrew Bustamante, who is a former CIA agent, and his guest here are talking about the way that they look at the situation with Epstein and the files and Trump and so on and so forth.
So if Trump was connected to that guy, 1 + 1 = 2, Trump was there's probably footage of him at one of Epstein's houses doing something. Otherwise, why the fuck would he be doing everything Israel is asking him to do?
Now, of course, I realize this is a very common interpretation of what's going on. But again, having looked at this, I was always like, that just doesn't add up to me. There has to be something else going on. He needs to be protecting this information for a different reason. Andrew Bustamante, by the way, who despises Trump, he did a really good job hiding that for a long time. He would go on the podcast tour, and I felt like I never really knew what his politics were. And he has done a very poor job of protecting the fact that he he despises Trump. But here, even he says that is not necessarily what's going on. I'll let you listen to him for a second before we move on.
And he's doing it when it's blatantly obvious that his base does not want him to do it, which is unlike him.
So there's a couple things here that are a little bit conspiracy brain. And I want to propose something that was new information to me, that was proposed recently to me, that I was like, that about Epstein, that I think makes a lot of sense. So the conspiracy element here is that we don't know what conversations are happening between Donald Trump and Netanyahu. We don't know what Israel's asking for or not asking for. So we can't say that he's doing what Israel is asking for, because we don't know what Israel's asking for. Maybe he is doing some of what they're asking for. Maybe he's doing none of what they're asking for. Maybe Netanyahu understands Trump and knows how to predict Trump's actions better than we do. So he's just putting things in place and kind of forcing Trump's hand. We have no idea.
I like that take because it's true. However, it would be much more true if we didn't know so much about Epstein's relationship to to Israeli intelligence. I mean, like, if we're trying to, pretend that he is not, connected to Israeli intelligence at this point, I think that is ignoring so much evidence. It's just, I'm not willing to do it. You know what I mean? Like, he obviously was with the Israelis, right? Now, if he was also with the Americans, who knows? But bottom line is, like, that's not an assumption I'm willing to make. He clearly was working with the Israelis, and honestly, the fact that Andrew, I mean, I'll spoil this a little bit. Andrew's his proposal is that he was not in fact working with either Mossad or the FBI, or the CIA, but he was actually working with the FBI, because what his actual purpose was hiding money for all of these guys. Like, that's what he was doing, hiding money for all these guys. And so he's working with the FBI, because they don't care about Epstein. They want the big fish. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of problems with that theory, if that's really what they're, so who'd they bust? Like, who did they bust? Like, where's the big bust of someone who was hiding money overseas? These billionaire guys never get busted for anything. Listen to this.
The other thing is about Trump's base. Trump doesn't have, in all likelihood, he doesn't have a third term to be president. What does he care about his base?
Right.
He gives two shits about his base.
Sure.
He's not loyal to the Republican Party, so if his base blows up, they can't use him either. So what does he fucking care? All he cares about is Donald Trump and the future profitability of the name Donald Trump.
I hate when people say that, man. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves in the world. It's like, it's so simple-minded, and it so clearly defies what everyone who knows him well says, right? Okay, and I want you to listen to him try to obviously we're talking about Epstein in this, but Trump is part of this also. And I think the complexity of the situation that Trump finds himself in is the entire crux of this issue. However, I don't think it's complicated anymore. Not after hearing about what we're going to talk about shortly.
To monetize this thing till the fucking wheels fall off.
And you know what? The 4 years that he wasn't president, you wouldn't have guessed it, because his name was still in the headlines every day in all the biggest metropolitan areas all over the country. So if that happens for the next 4 or 8 years, that's all free marketing in Donald Trump's world. So he doesn't care about his base. Anybody who thought that Donald Trump was going to come into office and fulfill his promises, we were just as stupid as Elon Musk, who spent how many months leading Doge, trying to capture efficiencies, only to then find out that Donald Trump wasn't going to give him what he wanted at the end. Donald Trump is an expert at business, an expert at unethical business, because he gets people to believe he will deliver, and then he doesn't deliver.
I've listened to a lot of his stuff. I think he's a smart guy, but again, when people start looking at Trump through this two-dimensional lens, it's like he just like promises people stuff and then he doesn't deliver. He's not loyal. What about what Dana White says? He's been friends with him for 30 years and says Donald Trump's the most loyal friend that he has, that he has always done right by him every single time they've done anything. Like, what about this guy? This example, this example, this example. And they just ignore that stuff. And it's like, I mean, dude, you're going to use the Elon Musk example. You're like, I mean, this one's really challenging to back into, dude. It's like, okay, Donald Trump took campaign funding from the energy sector and had made promises about something having to do with subsidizing, electric vehicles or whatever clean energy bill that they had given him as a condition. And then Elon then becomes an ally of Trump. And then all of a sudden he's got, this guy over here and then this promise he made over here. And he can't do both, It's a complicated situation. And to ignore that just demonstrates, again, Trump derangement syndrome. It is a very, very common thing. Okay. Now let's move along to here. Okay. So I want us to, because now we're going to get into the, the really gnarly details of what Virginia Giuffre says happened to her, which makes this entire thing crystal clear for me, where there's no world where you can protect these people and it's even moderately acceptable, right? Okay, so listen to this real quick.
Epstein for a security firm. Barak has vehemently denied any sexual involvement or knowledge of Epstein's crime, calling the accusations baseless. Okay. So potentially it was this Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak. That is the allegation.
Okay. So the story that I'm going to read you is apparently about the former Prime Minister of Israel, whose name I'm not even going to try to say because I'll butcher it, and I don't need a clip of me saying his name anyway. But what Kim Iverson said in this video is that the accusation, the exact accusation that is written about in the situation we're about to read about right now was in court documents earlier, and she named his name. The book calls him a prominent global prime minister, and they think that that people think the reason why she didn't name him by name in the book when she had previously named him is because the publisher is afraid of getting, who knows, getting sued or getting dead or something. You know what I mean? And when you listen to this is the other part of this, right? By the way, you guys remember, as we read this, I want everybody to keep something in mind, okay? As we read this story, keep in mind that Kash Patel went in front of Congress and said there was no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein ran any kind of trafficking operation. That is what he said to Congress. The FBI director said those words in front of the entire world, okay? Also went on Rogan, all of that stuff. Okay, you're telling me that they did not have access to this information that we're about to hear about, that she had, put out in other court documents? You're telling me that there was just no one knew anything about this in the FBI? I'm going to go ahead and let Kim Iverson, speak this, because it's, I don't know, a woman saying this is a challenging video for me to do, or at least this section is.
On behalf of American citizens using taxpayer dollars because they themselves were actually blackmailed. This is the New York Post. They came out with Virginia Giuffre's.
Okay, I just had to cut that entire part of the video out because there was no way to tell her story without the video getting demonetized. I tried 18 different ways. I cut the words out. It's just like, there's just no way. So what you need to know is we're talking about horrific treatment. Exactly the worst you would expect, okay? What she may have been doing willingly with other people, not in this case, and as bad as you could possibly imagine it, okay? So that is what is being taken out. Use your imagination. It's worse. Okay. Whatever you can imagine, it's worse. Okay. And we already talked about who the alleged person is. And now let's continue. She begged Epstein not to send her back to him. She got down on her knees and begged. And she said that Epstein coldly said, "You're going to get that sometimes." So upon release of the book, Prince Andrew is stripped of all of his titles. He's gone from public life. And, I don't know how everybody looked at Prince Andrew. I always saw him as a scapegoat. It's like, this is who they throw to the wolves. It's like, you have all of these people. As a matter of fact, I mean, this whole thing just validates everything that I have believed about why the people who were being thrown under the bus were. Because when you look at who really was involved in this stuff, you're talking about people with real power. Billionaires, prime ministers, presidents, these guys who can, pull the strings of the world. So they protect them because whoever is holding the blackmail, they are valuable assets. They don't want to show anyone. They don't want to compromise these people because then they lose their power. So they hold it back, right? That's why Israel wants to keep that compromising information held back, or the CIA or whoever, right? As soon as you use the blackmail, the value of it is gone. And what's more valuable than that, right? Okay. But here's the thing about that, right? In the world that I live in, you cannot accept that. Like, I'm sorry, dude. You can't have a person like that running around. I don't care what kind of power they have, especially if they're former whatever. Like, you're former something, dude, like, they've got to go, man. I mean, if they're current or former, you do that to a teenage or a kid, you got to go, man. Like, you have to go. I don't care what kind of power they have. So let's get into the other part of this video where I think I understand why this is happening and why people are being protected that should not be being protected. Okay. So first, watch this clip from Candace, and then we're going to talk more about this.
Has been destroyed in this pre-planned, controlled demolition of Gaza. Bibi Netanyahu is on camera explicitly before October 7th saying we need to hit them so hard that they can't come back. Jared Kushner is involved in, he will financially benefit from whatever they build in its place. Again, all of this began before October 7th.
There is a concern.
Okay, so that's, Candace pointing out that the demolition in Gaza was intentional. Okay. Now there's a lot more to that, but I just that's actually less important than what we're going to talk about, because I, again, have always said, I don't believe Trump would fold if somebody brought compromising information. They're all, hey, we got this on you. Like, he's never taken a backward step ever. If I had come out of whatever school and gotten snapped up by the CIA and they were like, look, this is the game that we play, and your goal is to understand the person that you're interacting with and what's going to drive them to do the thing you want them to do. That's all it is. At the end of the day, it is high stakes. I need that person to do the thing that I want them to do. It always comes down to carrot or the stick, like, I can give you a carrot or I can threaten you with a stick. Okay. Trump has a personality disorder in the fact that he's never going to react the way you want to the stick. He is just going to fight you every time. 100 out of 100 times, doesn't matter what you threaten him with, he's going to fight back. That's why he was able to get through all of the attacks that they threw at him in between 2020 and 2024, where anyone would have quit, dude. Anyone would have given up and just went and been a billionaire, but he wouldn't, because he's too savage of a guy, dude. Like, he's just like, I don't care, dude. I will never, ever, ever back down. That's why I voted for him. That's why I like the guy so much. But listen, like, to behave, to act as if he is a flawless individual that is incapable of making decisions that I disagree with is contrary to everything that I am as a person and that I would assume most people are. Okay. Everyone can make bad decisions. I can make terrible decisions that I'm sure people would staunchly disagree with. I can't think of an example right now, but like, everyone is capable of that. And with Trump, it's not with the stick, it's with the carrot. Okay. So you understand, what does he want? Like, what does he want above all other things? Right? Business, success, status, right? And so when you start looking at what's going on in the Middle East right now, right? Like, what's going to happen in Gaza after they clean this thing up? Now you start to understand, because this is simple as this. You want to back into why the Epstein files are being blocked? You need to know who is driving the ship blocking them. Okay. People think it's Trump because, Trump is compromising the files. Dumb. You don't understand him at all. You don't understand people if you think that that is the most likely scenario, because who is more public than him? You have gotten to see exactly how he responds to all types of stimulus. This is not that. Okay. So start thinking about the opposite. What's the carrot? Okay. And if we take for granted that Israel is the organization that has the valuable asset, which is the ability to blackmail all of these powerful people, and they are the ones who lose if the Epstein files are released, and if if what everybody wants in America is that anyone who was compromised and did anything, criminal with children, if all of them are going to come out and get exposed, who loses? Okay? Who loses? Because the answer is very simple. It is whoever holds the blackmail loses, and they lose exponentially. That's like it would be catastrophic to the way that the power that they wield globally, right? So that is the way you need to start looking at it. And I think everybody knows it's probably Israel, right? So why would Trump be doing something that is hurting, that his base doesn't want, in service of Israel, if it's not because they have compromising information on him, because that would be contrary to his personality? Okay. That means Israel is giving him a massive carrot. What would that be? Okay. What would that be? Let's see if we can figure out what that is right now.
Netanyahu's never going to let them back in.
Maybe, but I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. So, if you think about even the construct, Gaza was not really a historical precedent, right? It was the result of a war. And so my sense is I would say, how do we deal with the terror threat that is there so that it cannot be a threat to Israel or to Egypt, right? I think that both sides are spending a fortune on.
And I assume you guys are reading the text across. Jared Kushner and co. plan to make Gaza a haven for billionaires. Okay. This is exactly what they are planning to do with Gaza. This is what's going on. And you need to understand the amount of money that we are talking about in the rebuild of Gaza and what is going to come afterwards in Gaza. Okay.
On military, I think neither side really wants to have, a terrorist organization enclaved right between them. I mean, Gaza's waterfront property. It could be very valuable, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
Oh, and by the way, shout to the Young Turks for putting this all together. They just missed. They missed the big, I guess like Trump and the Epstein files are less important than, like a bunch of people that are getting murdered in order to, do this. But I would say that why Trump is doing what he's doing with the Epstein files has been the lingering question that everybody in America has asked. And this is the answer. I mean, this, in my opinion, is the answer as we continue to do this. Okay. So look at this. Hadass Lober, head of the Israel-U.S. project at the Institute of National Security Studies. I think it's got to be like a think tank. And the head of the Institute for Responsible Artificial Intelligence at HIT sees the increasing involvement of Kushner and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair in rebuilding the Gaza Strip and shaping the governmental and civilian reality there after the war is a good sign. Okay. So again, like what are we learning here about what's going to happen there after? Okay. The Saudis and the Emiratis are interested in taking part in the Gaza reconstruction plan, which beyond demilitarizing it and entrusting it to a technocratic government based on local forces with Arab backing, is supposed to become, according to Blair and Kushner, a city of tax-free startups with scattered server farms for cloud processing and artificial intelligence, and at its center, a Tesla factory where cheap local labor will work. Now, I just went on an epic rant that you're not going to want to miss, but I realized I had not shown this clip yet, and it's important that you guys see this before I go on the rant. So watch this, okay? Watch what is said right here, okay? So this guy's asking, what should the first settlement be in Gaza once they start to rebuild it? And this guy says, I didn't expect this. He's the Israeli finance minister, okay? And he says, just so you know, it's not funny. There's a business plan, okay? Listen to Carrot. There is a business plan, and it's the most professional people there are, and it is on Trump's table right now. Yeah, I'm sure Trump has not seen that before, and I wonder who's going to get the contract to rebuild this. I wonder, you think, because Kushner's probably operating independent of Donald Trump's companies, right? Like, there's no way that would be going. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, come on, guys. And for the record, if I was the president of the United States, if you think I wouldn't have a lieutenant going out and doing that, if I was in a certain business, you think that I would just like not have them out doing my bidding while I had the most powerful position in the world? Like, I'm not throwing rocks at people. The reason I recognize this game is because it's what I would do. Now, take out the Palestinian people. I'm not talking about that. But in terms of like use my power in order to benefit the people I care about and I love and my businesses while I'm in office, I am not a perfect person. Okay. There's probably a lot of people that will judge me for this. I'm just being honest. 100% I would do that. You can call me a bad person. Maybe I am, but that's what I would do for sure. Not at the expense of hurting or killing people, but Okay. So it says, I'm not kidding. This business plan pays off. Okay. I have started negotiations with the Americans. And I say this not jokingly because I also demand, we paid a lot of money for this war, so we need to divide how we make a percentage. Okay? He's talking about percentages. He's talking about rebuilding Gaza. He is talking about the real thing that is behind all of this. Because watch this. Marketing later in Gaza. And now, no kidding, we've done the demolition phase. He said, which is always the first phase of urban renewal. This is just straight up being said out loud, okay? And then he says, now we need to build, and it's much cheaper. Okay? He also said somewhere in there, I missed, he said there's going to be a real estate bonanza. There you go. And he said, here is how it turns into a real estate bonanza. Okay. Now let me explain to you how all of this fits together. Okay. They're turning it into Singapore. They're trying to do new Singapore in Gaza. Okay. And what they are positioning at, like, who has control of this? Who is involved in this plan? Okay, you have the Saudis, you have Israel, you have Jared Kushner, who represents who? Who represents who? Okay? What do you think is going on here? Why do you think that Trump is hiding the Epstein files? He is in the middle of one of the biggest deals in the history of humanity. Okay, that is what's going on, in my opinion. Okay, look at this. The plan is also receiving encouragement from several billionaires, such as Peter Thiel, Larry Ellison, who are looking for new tax-free areas and simple regulation, with the latter also willing to invest $350 million in the plan. Okay, what do all of these people have in common? What do all of the billionaires have in common here? They're all Trump's guys. They're all Trump techno-billionaires. Okay, like, do you think that George Soros gets to invest in this? You guys think Bill Gates is going to be involved in this project? No. Okay. And at the end of the day, I cannot stress this enough. This is how the world actually works. Okay. You want to see a perfect circle of how the world works for real, not in your make-believe land, not in the world you wish you lived in, but in the real world. This is how it actually works. Okay. You have people who get into positions of power, like the government. It's like, yeah, oh, the government is there to like help the people. Yeah, fucking right. Okay. The government is there because they take tax from the people, they provide some services, but then they also build up their military so they can exert, power over, at least that's the way ours works. So they can exert global power. And as they create opportunities from, militarily and by putting, economic force on these other places, then guess who gets to come in and profit from those things, right? Okay, like that's why I was saying, this is exactly why I kept calling Joe Biden's operation Mickey Mouse shit. Like, I'm like, they're going after me. He got like Joe Biden's, like when he was a vice president, it's like, you got your son, Hunter Biden, running around picking up bags of cash from the Chinese, and you got him on a board of directors and he's getting $1 million a year. This is Mickey Mouse shit. Okay. You want to see how big boys do this game? Okay. You are fucking looking at it. This is big boy shit right here. This is how Hillary Clinton did it. Like this is Hillary Clinton type stuff. This is big boy stuff. Okay. And it is ugly and it's fucking dark and it's as dark as it gets. But this is the reality of the world that you live in. There is no middle ground. This is what it is. You have a country that will eradicate an entire millions of people in order to take over a plot of land. They will do it with the backing of the U.S. government and the president of the United States and his people who are working in, tandem with them, with other powerful governments, and other billionaires who are backing him and backed his campaign are going to come into this area and they are going to build out a, tax-free haven for billionaires, whatever, that you cannot even fathom the type of money you're talking about. You're talking about a single thing that will turn the Trump family into one of the wealthiest in the country forever. Okay, this is dynasty making. This is going from Trump was, a big name with some buildings to a fucking endless dynasty. That's what this is. That's why he's withholding the Epstein files, because he's doing this deal with Israel, and Israel pulls strings with everyone with the Epstein files. Okay, that's what's going on. Now, you can argue with me on that in the comments. And I will say, I won't even respond. I just won't, dude. I'm not going to argue with people because the only way that you could not see that this is probably what's going, listen, listen, do I know for 100% sure that he's not in the files? No, I don't. But even if he was, he would still be doing this for this reason and not that one. Okay. Try to think about what you would do to make your family into the next Rockefellers that are going to have global influence and power forever. That's the kind of deal that this is. Okay.